And welcome to another Trigger Point Research Setups video. And we're going to talk about something that a lot of people have on their mind right now. It's all about the gold area, whether or not gold is a buy at this point, whether or not there's any legs to it. We saw that last week there was a precipitous drop of gold, and of course that affects the gold miners, and that affects them pretty harshly, especially when the price gets low. But what I wanted to go over today is this whole idea of, is there a benefit to possibly trading something like this? So what we're going to look at is the GDX, which is the ETF of the market vectors gold miners. It's a grouping of gold companies, those companies that are miners. And what I want to show you here is really not so much is it a buy at this point or is it a sell at this point or what do we do here, but I want to show you some trading strategies that you can use, and particularly when we use some of our different algorithms like the X-ray, and we take a look at, for example, some of the intermediate term levels that you can look at. So before we do that, I want to mention that if you've been watching this for a while, and hopefully you've been subscribing through the YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/triggerpointresearch, and we've been talking about things like Walmart recently. It was a short setup, down 3.5%. Questcore recently, up 32% since we talked about it. Newmont Mining down 15%, even with that nice bounce it saw as of this recording date. And Texas Capital Bank shares is up 2%. Since we started talking about that. Now, the point here is that these are all designed to be short-term trading setups, possibly if they do break their appropriate levels, and we won't really get into those unless they show us something that is very significant. Now, these setups that we're bringing to you and what we put on the Trigger Point Research website is just that. They're just setups. They're not really designed to be anything more but some educational as well as some informational areas that you should take a look at. And of course, it's important to know that if you want to get the actual trigger, the alert that comes to you, you have to check out the 14-day free, absolutely free, no credit cards required. There's a free trial for 14 days of Trigger Point Research alerts. You get the pro package. Just click on the YouTube screen or go over to triggerpointresearch.com/free trial. Now, here's something interesting. Let's zoom out a little bit. You're looking at the weekly chart, of the market vectors. Now, this is a kind of a long view that we're looking at, but here's something interesting. Let's take a look how bad this really is. Looking at the October range all the way through where we are here at the end of June, we're talking about 40 weeks and a 56% decline. That's extraordinary. And that has been an ongoing process of sellers just beating this up like crazy. Now, for whatever the reason, and whether it's good or bad, this is the technical part of it. So when we look at this and we see that there is basically, let's take a look at this. Let's take off this trend line here. And the bottom line is that when we look at this, how are we seeing this on a more close-up basis? Let's go to a daily for a second. Now look at this. When you look at this chart, you say, well, it probably should have to clear about 26 or so. There's that gap. There's the gap that we saw also back in April from 32 to 30. So that's about 9% gap right there. Couldn't make it back up. Fell down. We had some support in the 26 area or so, and then it just dropped down, and that was it. Now, let's take this one step further. I want to show you something. So now looking at the weekly compared to the daily, we see something different emerging. We see that we have some of the similar ranges, but when we put on the X-ray, we see that there's very little volume participation with this drop that happened on the 19th through about we'll say the 27th. And then all of a sudden there was some basing that happened right about at 2250. Now, when we look at the gold miners here, again, anything can happen. We don't know exactly when that is going to be pushed, but I want to show you what the great part of this particular process of finding where these holes are, where these fast zones are. You can see that when we have a purple right here and all the way down here compared to where we have the yellows, the reds, and this purple and blue area signifies as very little participation or very minor participation. And when we saw that at about 2297, that it broke out through there, you saw this incredible lurch straight up. This is up about 7% on the session today. And when you look at this, you got to realize that you're starting to get into a bit more of a potential area that could even see some further movement. Now, if you kind of break this down and go backwards, and we take a look at this even shorter, now this is a 60-minute chart. You saw that breakdown that happened here over on the 26 at the 23.5 level, and then this just totally filled that area. And if you were looking for this, and you would have seen this, and you would have seen that there was no level that showed any participation, you could have been very happy right there. Now, the same thing's going to happen potentially if we get over 25.5 or so. Now we harken back to the daily chart again, and that is going to coincide to about right there, same zone that we're seeing there on a daily basis, that we're showing that there is no participation and the potential for a major gap up is there. So when you look at these, you have to realize that we're showing the real participation areas. And again, here is one more example when we put in the levels right here at 25 and change, which is our full algorithm that shows where the levels are. This is probably the most important thing you need to keep aware of. Again, just something to keep aware of, something to watch for, and understanding how this whole process works with trigger point research. I want to thank you very much for joining me. We'll be back next week with some more things. See you then. Bye-bye.